Hello folks, I'm making this video to share how I use the Narcissus add-on to take cool pictures of my characters and show off my transmods. Now a lot of people who use this add-on online, like on the subreddits and the discords, they primarily use it to make turntables, but you can achieve really cool results with it if you unlock its full potential. And you won't even need to learn or use any external softwares like Photoshop, just completely in-game. Alright, let's get started. Before even opening the add-on, we gotta pick the location. When considering the location, the things you guys need to keep in mind are, first, the theme of it. If the style of the background fits the style of your character, it's gonna come together really naturally. And secondly, the colors. Even though your character is the main subject of our photos, the background will take a big bite out of your screen real estate. And if all that space on the photo is bland color and uninteresting lighting, it's gonna affect how your character is presented. For this picture, I'm in Xerath Mortis because it kind of fits this transmog, and the bright blue colors, they contrast nice against the bronze armor. So let's go ahead and open up photo mode. Okay, just to get the basics out of the way, this is your 3D model. You can use your left mouse button to turn it, right mouse button to pan it. If you pan it to the left, now suddenly it's not doing it anymore, it's moving your game camera. That's because your mouse needs to be on the right side of the screen to get this little controller which allows you to control the 3D models again. It can be represented by this visual down here on the bottom left. If you press the little Open Preferences panel, go down to Photo Mode, and this interactable area this white highlights will represent the area which you can use when you mouse over to control the 3D models in your scene. So before we even play with the 3D model, I can turn it off down here. We need a camera angle. So you can play around with your in-game zoom and positioning. You don't have to zoom in fully because you can just hide your character down here. But just be careful not to fall off to your death when doing anything like this, because you don't see where you're standing. On the bottom left, this camera button will give you some extra controls like pitch, FOV, which I found to be really useful a lot of the times. Zoom, which you can just do with your normal mouse wheel zoom or whatever you bind it to in game. And offset, also useful sometimes. Now if you want to raise your camera, a nice trick is to mount up on a big mount like this. Or you can sit down to lower your camera. It's a very slight adjustment, but it might come in handy sometimes. If I stand up, it raises a bit. If I mount up, it gives me some nice height. Let's adjust the FOV a bit to kind of flatten the perspective a little bit. Bring the objects in the distance a bit closer. And this is a nice angle that I enjoy. There we go. Let's bring our 3D model back. Now let's position it somewhere that makes sense in the scene for me. Kinda go with the rule of thirds for those who know what it is. I like my character to take about a third of the screen and to be a little bit off center. Now if my camera is pointing a bit upwards, then to fix the perspective you can hold down Alt and left click to rotate your character this way, up and down, kind of dolly it. So I'm gonna give him a bit of a tilt upwards, makes him the lower camera angle makes him seem stronger, and it kind of fits the perspective. Next up, you need to pick your animation. Now there's a whole list of animations here. I don't want to go over it, it's going to be a long video if I do. But for the orc, I just generally really like the default stand animation. And if you click these 4 dots button here, it's going to toggle between variations. This stand animation only has 2 variations. So I'm going to switch to the second one, which is this idle pose here that's kind of rocks the head back and forth. Now if I click the pause button, Now I have this slider, the time slider, which lets me manually control which part of the pose I want. So I'm gonna turn the head a bit to the side, then angle the character back. Next up, this is probably the most important part of the whole shot, is the lighting. You're gonna want your character to match the lighting of the scene, or you're just gonna feel out of place. But you also want your character to pop, so it doesn't blend too much with the background and then gets lost. First of all, let's talk about how the lighting works here. You have two lights that you can use. You have the point light, which aims a light in a directional manner, and you have the ambient light, which lights up all the areas that are not lit up by the point light. To toggle between them, first these controls here only control your point light because the ambient light does not move. But if you click this little button on the bottom left, you're gonna change to the ambient light now. These controls, again, they're still going to control the point light, but the colors will affect the ambient light. So my point light is still white, but the ambient is now red. If I switch back to point light and change it to blue, for example, my point light is blue and my ambient is red. Now these colors, I think, are very limiting, so you can press this button here to get full control. Now let's go back to ambient. The first one is hue, your colors, then you have the saturation. The bottom one is most important, it's the brightness. Black is basically no light. If I go back to point and I turn this off as well, basically the only thing that's going to be lit now is the elements that have like their own brightness in their textures, like these lightning elements. If I turn the point light up to super bright, make it like a bright orange, and I can direct it down below, I can make a very dramatic shot. But it's not what I'm going for in this image, but I do want to show it because it may be relevant for you. Now what do I want to do in this scene? Well, the ambient light in an exterior setting should match the sky more or less. So I'm going to first turn it up, get it into a sort of a bright teal hue, and you almost never want the saturation to be more than like 40% because it starts to look very fake and cartoonish or stylized, which might be what you're going for. But here, if I want it to match the environment, I want to keep it kind of close to white, but not all the way. If I move it too far back to fully saturated blue, it looks very bad. So I'm gonna start it fully white, drag it a bit until it feels like it fits in the scene somewhere around here. Next, let's go to our point light. Let's aim it from the direction where the light should be coming, which in this case is from the left. But I also want it to be angled in a way that kind of makes the character be lit up in an interesting way. So I don't want it to just wash up in front of, on top of the whole character. I kind of want to see a line in the difference of where the light starts and where it stops. Something like this. And I do like the orange light because it kind of highlights the bronze parts and it doesn't really feel out of place, even though there is no bronze lighting coming from here. It still works pretty well. Next up, the weapons. Personally, as a Fury Warrior, I often remove my weapons just because when they're unsheathed, they're kind of clip, and when they are sheathed, they're so big, they just block so much, and I don't find them contributing that much. But for you, you might want to keep them. That's fine. Just make sure that they don't block the more interesting parts of your character if you're using some really big, chunky weapon. Now let's talk about the framing. There's something here in the preferences panel. Go over to camera, is it? No. Yes, screen effects. You can turn on a letterbox. And you have two different thicknesses for it. This letterbox, your character is going to be on top of it. It's going to help your character pop. You don't always want to use this, but it is kind of interesting. It kind of changes the style a bit. Sometimes you want a small one. I'm going to go with a big one for this shot. Also, you have an alternative method if you go into group photo, then click the black bar subtitle, it'll create black bars, small ones, that are on top of your character instead of your character being on top of them. Now there is text here, you can just remove it, and now it's gone. So I sometimes prefer to use this. This is a bit more cinematic, but this one is more stylized and it helps pop your character and disconnect it from the background, which is often very useful. Next up, let's talk about these two sliders here. The top one will control your vignette. Now you should be careful with this. If you slide it up too far, it's going to be very noticeable to other people who are looking at your image. It's going to be taking attention away from your actual image because it's going to be so off-putting. I would generally not put it up anywhere higher than halfway point, even though to you it might seem weak. It does what it's supposed to do. It kind of draws attention to the center of the screen, to your character. That's all it's supposed to do. Sometimes it's even correct to just turn it off at all, but I'm gonna just turn it up a little bit, somewhere over here. Next up, the second slider is going to darken the game world for us. It's gonna just leave the 3D models. When you're dealing with an exterior scene like this, where you have a sky that's bright, you can't really drag this too far out because it just looks very unnatural. But I also want to not leave it at 0 because I want to darken the background just a little bit to help my character pop. Then we have this ground shadow here. A lot of people just use it just to kind of place at the feet of their character to give it a shadow, but really you can do some pretty cool stuff with it. Let me show you. First, if you press this more options button, you can of course control its opacity and size. If the developer of the addon is seeing this, really the only request I have is to not limit this. I want to make it even bigger. You're gonna see why. And secondly, you have this two modes of shadow. The second one is kind of like a line you can drag. It is useful sometimes. Let's go back to this. And of course, we have color. Now what can we do with this now we have color available? Well, for example, I have these glowing white bits on my character. Let's turn this white, drag it behind. That's a bit strong. I'm gonna turn down the opacity. It's gonna give a glow. But if I can't really, I want more. I want to put it here. I want to put it behind the helmet maybe. But I only have one. So let's turn on this group photo, and this are my layers basically. This is the layer of the character I'm using. I can add another one. I can add a target that I'm selecting, an NPC from the library, myself, or just a visual effect, which is a list of the stuff over here, like spell effects. But all of them are gonna come with their own ground shadow layer you can use. So for example, let's add another former myself, drag this guy off the screen, goodbye, turn on his ground shadow, and I have another one. Make it white. Turn it up a bit, put it over here. Nice. Another one. Off you go. Fix my camera. Ground shadow. Color white. Back here. It's already gonna make my character a bit more interesting. This one can be a bit smaller. And it's gonna pop him from the background. Because like if I go here and turn it off, you can see that it's gonna be harder to notice when the shoulder ends and the building begins, because they're so flatly lit. So this separation line will help a lot. Now we can even be more creative with it. For example, let's add another one. Also white, big and bright. Let's turn this one into a line. We can kind of make a sunbeam, a light beam. I'm gonna make the background a bit brighter for this to work. Now, this is something that the viewers of this image are not going to really notice consciously, but unconsciously, this will draw their eyes' attention like an arrow to your character, while also making the background a bit more interesting. Just because we have these black bars, try not to drag it on top of them, it's gonna be very noticeable. Now let's add maybe another one. Ground shadow. This time maybe we should keep it as black shadow and kind of help to distinguish our character from the background by kind of darkening the areas behind him. Let's drag this away so it doesn't block my controller of the shadow. So to kind of help separate the hand from the wall behind it, I'm just gonna put some shadow behind it. It's gonna help make the hand pop. Now you're gonna want to be careful not to go too crazy with it. And this is kind of why I would like to be able to make this bigger, because I have so many uses for these ground shadows. Let's add another one. You don't even need to add a character, you can just make it a virtual layer and you'll have no 3D model, but you can still bring in a shadow. Again, black. Let's put it behind the torso to kind of make the character pop a bit. Let's go back to this shadow, it's a bit too strong. Turn it down. Something like this. Yeah, gonna wanna be, don't wanna go crazy with it, or it's gonna be very noticeable and off-putting. Now again, this area is a bit brighter than I want. I want the focus to be here, so I'm gonna turn up the vignette a bit more. It's gonna help me do that. Now another important trick I want to show you is when you're working on your image, every so often, grab a picture of it, alright? Open up MS Paint and just paste it in there. Then zoom out, zoom a whole bunch out until it's a tiny little image. And this, it's like taking a huge step back. It's gonna really help you judge how the image is going, how is the readability of it, and the colors, and it's gonna help you distinguish what the problems are. Now, for me, the only thing that's bothering me is the door on the right. It's kind of this big rectangle of blue that kind of doesn't make sense without it. Like the whole half right section of the image would be like the darker colors, which would be really nice. So I'm gonna try and achieve that by just fixing my camera a little bit, adjusting it, maybe zooming in a bit. Just don't want to fall down. Something like this. Gonna adjust my FOV perhaps. Gonna move this. There we go, something like this. Move this back. Let's correct this. Let's try it again. Take a picture of it. Bring it into MS Paint. Paste it in. And I'm already liking this better. I do feel like I don't need the whole image. It's definitely something you can do. You don't have to use your entire screen. Sometimes cropping it just helps. Either way, let's try a new shot on a different character. Alright, now I'm on my Warlock in Nazmir. Gonna try to make a new shot and show you another trick you can do with the group photo feature or function. First, let's get us a nice frame. Alright, let's bring the character back. Again, the most important thing is the light. Let's switch to ambient light and kind of match it to the scene. I think it's somewhere around like a purplish blue. Go back to the point light. Maybe we'll give it an orange color to kind of match this torch on the left, right? Do we want the weapon? Probably not. I usually don't like displaying the weapons in these images, personally. Let's bring in the ground shadow. And maybe we can use this to kind of accentuate the moon a little bit. if we kind of give it a color kind of matching the red of the moon, kind of a blood red, a bit less saturation perhaps, a bit darker, and let's turn it into the directional one. We can do what we've done last scene, which is kind of aim it at the character. Maybe it's a bit too strong though. Something like this would make more sense. Or we can kind of use this temple and kind of like shine it on the temple, which kind of seems to fit nicely. But this just draws attention to the temple, which is not really the point of this image, right? It's about our cool transmog. We can also just turn it back into this circular mode. Just kind of use it as like a thing to light up the clouds to make the moon seem even brighter. We can even, of course, add more. Now the color is gonna be remembered from the last one, so you just gotta click the check mark. But these opacity and size sliders are not gonna be remembered. Just keep that in mind. There we go. Now the animation. Again, I'm a sucker for orcs, so I just like the default standing pose with this variation. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. Silly me. Let's change to this variation. Pause it. This time I'm gonna look to the other side. Something like this. Now, what if we bring in more ground shadows? Kind of give them a color to match this little glow on the shoulders. And put them behind. It's very subtle, but it will help disconnect your character from just blending in too much with the environment. It's gonna make the image more readable. Same color. Aim it up. Bring it over here. Now let's bring in the black bars, but not the ones we've used before. Let's bring in this black bar subtitle. This will cover my character instead of my character covering it. Let's remove this text. And you have kind of a more cinematic style of black bars. But furthermore, we can kind of stylize this further by bringing another version of me. Let's remove the weapon, freeze it in sort of the same animation pose. Something like this. Bring it in behind. Now the light is the same, but if you unlink the light sources, you can light this independently. So for example, you can turn the light off completely, right? Which is a style on its own, but you can kind of use this as like a stroke or a shadow of a sense. And if you're going for something more stylistic, this is like a sort of comic book feel. And of course it's not perfect, but the fact that the stroke is uneven on different sides just ends up giving it more style, I think. Or what you can do is give it a visual. Let's go into body and environment, color tone, and maybe Bonsandi theme, since we're in the temple of Bonsandi. Right click this, now bring this behind. This can kind of be used to give your character a sort of spectral glow without actually completely recoloring it like it is here. Now of course you can add as many of these as you want. You can put one on top of the other, light one of them red, one of them blue, and just have like a whole sort of a rainbow trail of your character's outlines. Which is really the whole point of this video, right? Because all of these tools here, a lot of people just use them as like what they say on the box, just a model or a shadow, but really you can just stretch them thin and just use them in very creative ways if you just kind of put your mind to it. Alright, I'm gonna do one more shot really quickly because there's just a couple more things I want to show you. First of all, I just want to remind you that you can use something like the date simulation modulator from the Valentine's event to change the lighting. You have a few different options here, some really good ones, such as a bright peaceful day or fireflies at midnight, which can help you make like a dark scene. But if this is not dark enough, you can actually use an inky black potion, which I bought right here, which will make it even darker, which is what I'm gonna use for this shot. Now let me also get up on my yak, and I'm gonna buy some booze, some alcohol, because we can use this to get drunk to make the background blurry, like a depth of field effect, and that's what I'm gonna show you. So I'm just gonna real quick set up a scene, and I'll be back in a moment. Now, one thing of note when you're dealing with a dark scene, it's much harder to light up the character. I have this point light here that it's colored orange to match the fire of the brazier, and I want it to be lighting up from behind, but then my front is very dark, and if I turn up my ambient light, it just feels a bit out of place. So here's a third way for you to light your character, and that is with a torch. Quite simply, which I'm gonna equip in my offhand and pull it out. And in my main hand, let's equip a small axe. Maybe this one, I like that one. And as you can see, without the torch, it's actually lit up less. The torch is emitting light. This is also the case with campfire, which you can add from the visuals menu. But that one is harder to position, and it will not affect different layers, only the same layer that it's a part of. And since we're on the topic of torches and braziers, I'm also gonna use a ground shadow on this brazier, to kind of enhance its glow. Let me match the color first. There we go. Gonna put it on top the source of the fire. Gonna have to move back a little bit. Then I'm gonna turn down the opacity and just raise it up slowly until it feels right. Let's add another shadow, and again, same thing, although this time just a white color. Again, put it on the source, make it smaller, and same thing with the opacity, just raise it up. There we go. Now to help distinguish the head from the background, I'm gonna again add a ground shadow, and I'm going to give it the color of a bright night sky. Place that behind the head. Same thing with the background behind the character. I'm gonna use again ground shadows to kind of pretend there is a cold mist in the background. Just place it over the distance. There we go. Maybe it's even a bit strong. Good. Let's add another one. Same color. Same thing over here. Now I'm gonna add actual black shadows. Now let's drink that alcohol. I'm gonna press Alt Z, which is the default keybind to hide and unhide your UI. Now I'm just gonna press B for my back and drink some alcohol. Let's mount back up, hide the UI again. Now unfortunately the drunk effect does mess with your FOV, and I should have accounted for that, but it's no problem to just quickly readjust the camera and move the ground shadows. I'll do that real quick. And that's pretty much it. This is how I use Narcissus. This is my process and little tricks that I picked up. I hope you've enjoyed. Maybe some of you even got inspired to try it out for yourself. I'm eager to see what you can come up with. I think this add-on is really great. It's a big cut above the rest, definitely in terms of quality. And it's so nice to have an equivalent of photo mode in World of Warcraft. And with that, well, thank you for watching. Goodbye.